Hi everyone, this is Representative Pam Altendorf and doing my weekly update, either late or early, however you want to look at it. But as I've said before, I want to keep on doing these. I think I've decided I'm going to have to definitely do more of them and maybe just keep them shorter because the rate at things are happening here in the Minnesota State Legislature. It's just a week is too much time to go by. So today I wanted to just pretend for a little bit, what if they put me in charge of Minnesota? So you can think with me, go ahead and post in the comments, what would we do if we were in charge? Well, I like to think that most people who are business owners and or who, you're a household owner, that we just do practical things. We always want to prioritize our most important priorities, and then we put our focus on those first. We also, hopefully we're financially responsible as a business or as a home, and I think that's something that we all can appreciate and relate to. Most of us try not to, at the end of the year, go into debt or to overspend. And so just bringing in common sense, I would, if they put me in charge, no one did, but if they put me in charge, I would prioritize for all of Minnesota what is just the most important things right now, and especially with the surplus, with having $17.5 billion surplus, I would want to focus our dollars on one-time spending and to get like emergency funds into areas that we really need it. Okay, so if they put me in charge, $17.5 billion surplus, I first, because that is an over-taxation of our budget, I definitely would have wanted to focus on getting some of that tax money right back to the people. Now, I've told you this before, but let me just say this one more time for people who maybe didn't hear me say this before. This surplus that we're looking at Minnesota is really no shock. It's really no surprise when you realize that over COVID, the federal government poured $80 billion into the Minnesota economy of COVID dollars in different ways. And that came straight to our state. So when we are looking at a $17 billion surplus, again, for anyone that understands math, this is not shocking at all, because as the 80 billion came into our economy and people spent it, that is going to increase your sales tax that we are collecting, possibly income tax, and most definitely corporation taxes. So those are the three ways that as the state of Minnesota that we're collecting taxes. And so if you have this surprise, which was not budgeted 80 billion in COVID dollars, of course, our tax revenues are going to raise. Now, what's very dangerous is moving forward is putting those tax dollars in any place that is going to have tails, which means it's not one-time spending, but we are increasing our budget. Because if we forecast out 2 years, 4 years, we're going to go back to normal. We're not looking to continue to have this kind of a surplus. So instead, what would I do if I was in charge? But I would give some of that tax dollars right back to the people that paid it in. I would look at permanently cutting the Social Security tax, which we are one of only 11 states that taxes Social Security. So really by doing some tax refund, and what I think sometimes the Democrats don't realize or put into their numbers is when you do tax cuts, it grows your economy, because when people have more money in their pockets, they will tend to spend more. And so that is just a missing element in Minnesota. Instead, our Democrat friends seem to tax, and they don't understand that when people have this great burden of tax on them, they're not spending as much, so the economy isn't as strong. But the reason why I wanted to talk about what would I do is, again, as a business owner, as a homeowner, you want to prioritize what is most important. So again, I would do some tax relief, but I'm going to look at the whole state of Minnesota, and I'm going to look at what needs the most help in Minnesota. And right now, especially in my district, nursing homes are really struggling. Mental disability homes are really, really struggling. You know, these are two places where we could put some one-time money to help them during this time, you know, to keep them open. Think about it. Where are those people going to go if we don't help them? You know, so it's just a really tragic situation right now. Our schools are really at a crisis, and this is nothing against the teachers or the principals or the administrations or the school board. The Republicans, we did a press conference about this. It was 1 or 2 weeks ago. I'll put it in the comments, so later look for that in the comments. But it is well known right now that we were doing a reading type program that is called, I believe it's whole language, and that has failed us. It truly, that whole system of reading has failed us. And here's the problem. If kids don't learn how to read, because they first learn how to read, then they are reading to learn. So that's why it's now affecting math and science, is if kids don't have the basic principles of how to read first, they also can't learn because they don't have those basic skills. So we really are in a crisis situation. And again, I don't think we should be here pointing fingers or having blame, but we do know there's a program called Science of Reading. And just to give an example, but in Mississippi, they went from 49th in the state for literacy, in the country, 49th state ranked for literacy, to, I believe it was #1 in a 6-year period. So here's a proven method. It's called the Science of Reading. And again, I'll post it. There's a documentary out on it. You know, and it's like, why would we as Minnesota, because it truly is a crisis if we have a generation of kids that are struggling with reading and then struggling with learning. This is a crisis. And so for me, I would prioritize our children, and I would put a one-time payment, right into the curriculum to change the curriculum so that we could get on a better path. But we definitely are in a crisis in different areas. And here's what Governor Walz came out with this last week. I don't know if you can see it. But so gender affirming care protected. He signed an executive order, Walz executive order. So this is to protect or to make Minnesota like a trans sanctuary state, to protect that. Now, you know, this discussion isn't even about, do you agree with that or do you not agree with that? This discussion is about, what I started out saying is, if you were running Minnesota, if you were in charge of Minnesota, so I made myself in charge of Minnesota, I would want to be helping things that are touching the most people in Minnesota and making things better for the most people in Minnesota. Tax cuts touches a lot of people. Schools obviously touches a lot of people. Nursing home, mental disability homes, all of these touch a great number of people. Making Minnesota a gender affirming care protected state, I don't believe that's really helping the majority of Minnesotans. And so again, we have to look at what are people doing, watch their actions, not their words. When the Democrats have the governor, the Senate, and the House, here's a little secret, everyone. They literally could do anything they want right now in Minnesota. And they're showing their cards. They're telling you who they are. They are passing things like driver's license for all. They're prioritizing letting felons vote. And now, and you know, again, the most extreme abortion bill in the whole country, in the whole world. And now, big priority for most Minnesotans, I'm being a little sarcastic, but gender affirming care. So I'm just asking, is this your priorities, Minnesota? I think I know the answer, because I get calls in my office and I get emails in my office every day saying what has happened from Democrats, from moderates, from independents, saying this has gone too far. These are not my priorities. I don't know what happened to the Democrat Party. Well, to tell you the truth, I don't know either. But I just want to let you know, we have to get involved. This is no longer a Republican versus Democrat thing. This is dangerous for the state of Minnesota to have priorities that's not good for boosting our kids' education, for doing things that's truly going to bring down the crime, you know, here in Minnesota. And then also, it really bothers me when I see all these bills that's really going after small businesses, farmers, because that's our economy. We have to be smart, Minnesota. We have to be encouraging people to be productive, to work, to want to stay here, to want to live here. And we do that by having great education for our kids. We do that by having safe streets. We do that by lowering our tax dollars so that we are attractive to other people moving here, not wanting to flee, not wanting to move out because we're one of the highest tax states. So that's just a few thoughts for me, but what if they put me in charge for a day? In the last 11 weeks, you would have seen a very different scenario, and those are my priorities. We need you to get involved with the legislation process. Call Democrats, put letters to the editor and just say these priorities are not my priorities, and try to help us fight back against this really extreme, radical agenda that's not representing most of Minnesota. It's not representing even most of their party, the Democrats. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate you watching and following along. And if you ever have any questions, post it and I'll do a future video on it. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on YouTube. I've been trying to post more and more of the videos. And then, of course, you can follow me here on Facebook. So thanks, everyone. I really appreciate you. Love you. We are working hard, and just know we have your back, and we're fighting here in Minnesota for all of our real Minnesota values. Bye, everyone.